are the members of the Art Deco Society, the fastest-growing club in the Bay Area and the biggest deco club in America. In only 2 years, more than 1,000 people have joined the Art Deco Society, which is devoted to reviving the 1920s and 30s, the golden age of glamour. Each year, the club has a fashion show for the styles that have been preserved this half a century. All of the clothes are authentic. Some are from private collections, but most are from vintage clothing stores in the Bay Area, shops with names like The Way We Wore. Vintage clothes are a booming business. Prices range from $15 up to $1,500 for the beaded dresses.
Dressing up all the time, it makes you feel fantastic.
Most people in the Art Deco Society were born too late for the Deco years.
Because I wasn't in that time, these clothes hold a special meaning to me. And when I can get into it, I get to play a part that I wasn't a part of. So it's great.
But some people, like Stella Nathan, remember the old times.
A wonderful memory, because I lived then in Vienna and we had a very gay time in Vienna. And we dressed very much like that. Mostly in beaded dresses that looked like lampshades.
The Art Deco Society takes fun seriously. Besides having fashion shows and parties, the group works to preserve Art Deco buildings in the Bay Area and to save everything from sheet music to old movies. Yes, it was a great era. As someone once said, it's an idea whose time has come again. In San Francisco, Janine Yeomans, News Center 4.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits? Putting on the Ritz. Different folks will wear a Deco pants with stripes and cutaway coat. Perfect fits. Putting on the Ritz.
We're always busy. Everything is Art Deco now.
Yet another Art Deco revival is underway in the Bay Area, helped along by movies like The Cotton Club. The art, architecture, styles, sights, and sounds of that boom and bust era, the 20s and 30s, are back in fashion. Pianist and singer Leslie Harleb, who wrote an article about it, thinks she understands the appeal.
I think it offers a purity and a depth that today's culture doesn't do. When that revival came around, it was a streamlined celebration of technology that up until that time people really hadn't had in general.
Here's a tune that I think sort of sums up the jazz baby attitude of the 1920s. To be or not to be, that is not the question. I decided long ago to be.
Leslie performs the music of the era at the very Deco Cafe Royale in San Francisco, one of several places that draws crowds with a combination of streamlined style and those memorable, hummable, danceable tunes. Another is the Peacock Court in the Mark Hopkins Hotel, which holds frequent tea dances featuring the Royal Society Jazz Orchestra. The authenticity of the musical arrangements, the room, and the clothing transport the dancers back to a more innocent time.
I love the music of the 20s and 30s. It makes me feel like dancing like no other music.
Now that we can see ourselves and our history of dance in films, there's a way of understanding and responding and imitating that.
It's a complete escape into just pleasure.
In the aura of glamorous nostalgia, sometimes the hardship of the Depression gets overlooked. But orchestra leader Don Deely says that was always the purpose of the upbeat music.
The people of that time were trying to bolster their enthusiasm and keep their sunny side up, so to speak. I think people need some optimism and romance in their life today, and I think that probably means a lot. And it's fresh to these people because they don't remember it.
Well, a dance like tonight features something that you cannot find anywhere else. It's a little time period that's preserved.
For people like Leslie and Don, the Art Deco era provides a living and a hobby. For others, it's a pleasant, if temporary, escape. But for a few, it's a total lifestyle.
I live in that time period. most of my interests revolve around things from the 1920s and 30s, my business, my hobbies, and my whole life. And it's really kind of fun to live both in that time and in the 80s as well.
Laurie Gordon lives in a 1927 building in the Haight. Her apartment is completely decorated in the period. She sells antique phones and produces events like the Art Deco Ball for a living. And she's vice president of the Art Deco Society.
Hello? Hi, yes. There was a kind of an opulence. Some of it was a real opulence, like the things we saw from the old movies. Others was a perceived opulence, the kind of imaginary view that we have now of that time, of things being of better quality, which they were, and of people having more money, which they probably didn't, but a kind of a lifestyle that now seems glamorous to us. And it gives me a great feeling of security and comfort. In a world that's changing so fast. My apartment doesn't and my things don't. They have a kind of stability to them.
Still, Laurie doesn't see herself as an eccentric, and through her work with the Art Deco Society does what she can to preserve that fast-fading and fragile world.
You know, I can do whatever I like within my own apartment. I can collect things and I can have old fashions and clothes and listen to old music, but it's the outside world that is jeopardized, and that's why those of us that are in the Art Deco Society work so hard to try to save things like the architecture and the buildings, because that's something that we all share, and when they're gone, they're absolutely irreplaceable. I often live in an 80s kind of life, but I like to live in that other time, so I try to do things. A lot of times I put on events, parties and balls and dances and shows and things that specifically recreate that time. So I found other people to play along with me in that respect.
These were not rich eccentrics. These are people who come from similar educational backgrounds to myself, similar families, but they've made this aesthetic choice, and they live by it.
Putting on the Ritz, putting on the Ritz, putting on the Ritz.